What's up? So chapter 2 of Fortnite has been here for quite some time now, and while we've been playing such a simple and more primitive version of Fortnite, I think it's easy to forget just how insane Fortnite once was. And so what I wanted to do in today's video is look at the very mature and 13+ topic of 10 items that you probably forgot about in Fortnite, or at least have sort of floated to the back of your mind, and you're gonna look at this video and be like, oh yeah, I kind of forgot about that thing. And let's also not forget anti-disestablishmentarianism. Am I right, Matt Pat? Like 5% of you probably got that reference. Now, let's get into it. All right, so coming in at our number 10 spot, let's talk about the Spikey Stadium. So the Spikey Stadium was a creative and playground mode exclusive that could be found in supply drops. Basically, you had these special supply drops that would come down and they would drop like 8,000 Spikey Stadiums. Really, you only needed to pick up one to throw down. And the Spikey Stadium basically just served as this playground minigame. The Spikey Stadium was basically this rectangular building that had a whole bunch of spike traps and bouncers along the walls. Players could also pick up impulse grenades and basically throw them at their enemies and try to bounce them into the wall and get kills with it. Killing in Fortnite, now that sure is some ad-friendly yet 13+ content. Now with that said, the Spikey Stadium isn't something that I truly miss, but it was one of those things I was like, oh yeah, kind of forgot about that. Anyways, moving on to number 9, I want to talk about the Sneaky Snowman. Probably one of the most interesting crossovers of an idea in Fortnite, but this is something that really didn't ever take hold. The idea of the Sneaky Snowman was something that of a winter bush, where you could, cover it on yourself and hide as though you're just a snowman. But I don't really think it was an idea that ever took hold. It really wasn't in the game for all that long, and I think 99% of people that when they got it would just sigh and say, it's just this, I would have preferred another item. That said though, it is one of those items that I also feel like really stands out when you remember it, as it was a unique idea despite not being all that exciting. But another item that came during last winter was a little bit more interesting, and moving on to number 8, that is the present. So specifically, the Christmas present was an item that was released around last Christmas, and I gotta say, is something I really miss and hope comes back for this one. The Christmas present is another one of those things that I kind of just hadn't thought about in a while, and when I'm reminded of it, I'm like, oh yeah. But this time it's like, oh yeah, that was actually sweet. The Christmas present was a legendary item that when thrown would place down a 1x1 box that would contain a legendary weapon as well as a few other items. It was basically the equivalent of a supply drop that would also place really strong walls instantly. But overall, it's just one of those Fortnite items that kind of went to the back of my mind, yet now I'm remembering it. It's got me excited to hopefully see these introduced for Christmas. And probably with that said, it's not going to be long till we do see these return. Now, moving on to number 7, something a little bit more recent is the Storm Flip. The good old Storm Flip. I think probably one of the most significant items introduced in the last couple months before chapter 2. The Storm Flip was certainly interesting. Now, I think most people only ever remember the Storm Flip as being a gigantic stink bomb, but it was a multi-purpose item, because when you would throw the Storm Flip on the regular map, it would turn the area around it into a storm bubble. But when you threw it inside the storm, it would actually make that area safe from the storm. And I don't think the item was very often used for that secondary purpose, as it was just a whole lot more effective to be used in an offensive way, but it was a cool multi-purpose item. There really weren't a lot of items that were both offensive and helpful in that way. The only other thing I can really think of as the launch pad. So it was certainly unique. And yeah, it's just another one of those items that really makes me go, oh yeah, huh. Anyways, moving on to number 6, I thought this list wouldn't be complete without at least one vehicle. Now, I'm sure vehicles aren't really something that have gone from your mind because you probably really missed them in chapter 2, but I thought it would be worth talking about. It has been so long since we've seen an ATK in Fortnite, and I am genuinely surprised that something like these haven't actually returned. The ATK just feels like it would be so natural in this season, and I'm really sad that we haven't seen it yet. So did I forget about it? I'm not really sure, but I feel like a lot of the community has. It's just one of those items that you're like, oh yeah, man, it's been a while since we've seen golf carts. But another item I almost completely forgot about was the baller. And it really hasn't been that long since we've seen the baller, as it was only season 9, but it just feels like something that's completely foreign to the game now. And not only do I miss these things, but with the new chapter and meta of Fortnite. It's something I really forgot existed. Now moving on to number 5, this was a very small thing in Fortnite that I just completely forgot about. And that is the cake slice. So these have only been available for about 3 to 4 weeks throughout Fortnite's summer during its birthdays events. And yeah, just going through the list of all the things, I was like, oh my god, yeah, cake slices. Like such a minute and tiny thing of Fortnite that I literally just completely forgot existed. Anyways, moving on to number 4. Something that really escaped my mind was the Boombox. This thing was in Fortnite for like barely a month, and I just kind of completely lost it in my mind. The Boombox was an item that basically when thrown would destroy all structures in a 3x3 radius, and honestly was quite effective. I don't know if I want to say overpowered because it eventually got replaced by dynamite, which would essentially do the same thing but also damage people. But yeah, the Boombox was just a very weird item. Like it got thrown in around season 8, which was a weird time of Fortnite, and I just don't feel like it was that memorable. And that's because it wasn't in the game for long enough and also just overly wasn't amazing. I don't want to say it was bad, but I don't want to say it was great either, and just kind of like in that moderately good range that is just kind of an area that people tend to forget. You remember the stuff that was really good and really bad, but not that kind of in between, and I feel like that's where the Boombox lies. Now moving on to number 3, I gotta talk about the Porta Fort and Fortress. I mean, those are 2 items that you obviously recall instantly as soon as I mention them, but I think it's fair to say that they've probably sunk back into your mind where you haven't thought about them in a while. I mean, dang, it's been a while since we've seen either one of them, and they were very weird items. The Porta Fort was an item that people once called OP, giving you the ability to climb 3 stories basically instantly, or 3 like lengths of a wall instantly, and I gotta say, really wasn't that effective. Yeah, it really didn't do a whole lot, and its Porta Fortress was a bit of an improvement. Like throwing down a Porta Fortress early game, especially when building wasn't an option, could be very useful, and even in a late game scenario, putting that down on a hill and having a big metal structure was certainly sometimes helpful. But they're just something that have been out of the game for so long that I feel like it's very easy to just kind of stop thinking about. You don't miss them because they were just a very neutral thing in the game, and it just kind of lets you stop thinking about them. Now moving on to number 2, we've got a very throwback item, and these are smoke grenades. Again, you probably haven't thought about smoke grenades in months, if not years, but as soon as you hear it, it's like, oh yeah, of course, smoke grenades. They're just one of those things that easily kind of slip in the mind. They were maybe a little bit more notable as they were one of the first items ever introduced into the game. I just feel like they were so neutral. Like they were good for sometimes rezzing a teammate or something like that, but overall they just weren't an incredibly effective item, and to use it as a slot in your inventory was certainly not worth it. That said, they could be maybe beneficial at the start of a game, but really just in general not that great. Now before we get down to our number 1 spot, I did have an honorable mention. So I was actually talking about this on Twitter with you guys, and I for some reason had thought that there was a time where the shield potion was gray and healed 40. Now it says this on the Wikipedia, but I haven't been able to find any gameplay of it, and no one else recalls it. So it may be very well that it's just a false fact on the Wikipedia that I read before, and I just kind of imprinted without even realizing. So if anyone remembers a gray shield or a shield that healed 40, please let me know. Otherwise, I think I am insane. But a variant of a potion that 100% did exist is the Slurp. The original Slurp potion was actually much different from the one we know today, and obviously a whole lot worse. Because the original Slurp potion didn't heal 75 health at all, it actually only healed 50 at the max. So all the original Slurp potion would do is heal 25 health and 25 shield regardless. So if you had 100 health and 25 shield, your total health would go up to 150, and that's it. If you had 100 shield and 50 HP, your HP would go up to 75, but no further. Literally just 25 and 25 for each, and it was very weird and much less effective than the Slurp we know today. Yeah, I kind of forgot about that old bad boy, and it's certainly not something that I miss to any stretch. But ladies and gentlemen, with that said, there is one item that really made me go, Oh yeah, one item that I completely forgot existed and actually have fond memories of. I don't know why I forgot about this, but I guess it's just been because they haven't been in the game for so long. And this is balloons. Balloons were in Fortnite for more than a whole season. I think being introduced in 6 and going all the way through 7. Like, whatever happened to balloons? They just kind of got removed from the game one day and we've never seen them since. They weren't an overly effective item, but they allowed for improved mobility, and I kind of liked them as an item. They certainly weren't the greatest thing ever, but I do feel like they served a purpose and were one of those just fun things about Fortnite. And yeah, not only did I kind of forget about them, I actually do miss balloons. So yeah, that's our list. Let me know what you guys thought about this one. Was there anything on this list that you were like, oh my god, yeah, I completely forgot that those were in Fortnite? Because I'm certainly closer to the Fortnite vault than I think a lot of players, as it's just a common topic for video ideas. So I was a little bit less, I guess you would say I was a little bit immune to some of these older items, but even some of these, I was like, oh my god, yeah. And anyways, yeah, that's our video. Thank you guys very much for watching. I'll talk to you later. Peace out, you freaking nerds.